There are few inevitable pairs in life. Peanut butter and jelly, nails and hammers, YouTubers and tier lists. And this tier list is like no other because I've added a brand new element to the creation of this Dark Souls 3 boss tier list. My opinion. The strongest substance on the planet, so unending that the only thing that can break it is itself, because what I think is always the better opinion. It's no uncommon thought that Dark Souls 3 has one of, if not the best, boss roster in From Software's library of games, probably only being rivaled by Elden Ring. Even though that game has a bad problem with repeating bosses, but that's a complaint for a different video. I'll say this now and express that I don't really think there are any real bad bosses in Dark Souls 3, except for 2, since this game seemed to really lean into them. So without further ado...
Why they saying you ate a treat if you ain't eat a treat from... Did you eat... I'ma ask you again. Did you...
Man, do they not know how to make an enjoyable NPC fight? Champion's Gravetender has some of the most problematic issues out of any in the entire game. First, the stupid tree climbing segment to reach him in the first place is so egregiously bad that I actively moan when I'm presented with it. And I've only ever played through the DLC one time before this. Not only is FromSoft known for bad platforming, but they slapped a shitload of expert marksmen to endlessly shoot at you just so you can reach the damn boss. Another... This boss is an NPC fight. Enough said. And now, I've never played Dark Souls 1, but even I can realize when they've recycled the boss and made it worse. They took all the charm from Sif and stripped her of her big-ass sword, and, you know what? Speaking of dogs, they thought it was an amazing idea to not just put one, but put 3 whole wolves to chase you down while you try to deal with the Gravetender before the Great Wolf shows up halfway through the fight. So it's not only FromSoft's most disappointing enemy with the NPC fight, but their most annoying with the dogs, and a reused boss from an older game. Just a lazy and bothersome fight that only rewards you with some online fighting bullshit. The positives? I don't know, the arena is pretty, I guess.
And you are?
I'm the guy.
Yeah, I think we all saw this coming, and you know what? This isn't separated into tiers, but these two are the only F tiers in my eyes. The only thing that saves Half-Light from taking last place is the absence of dogs. His arena is boring and suffers from the same NPC plague that Gravetender did. What I can say is that he has some genuinely unique attacks for an NPC. Not very fun attacks to deal with, but unique. I don't exactly like having to kill Judigator Argo, I just learned his name, in the back every time, since he's pretty much just a regular enemy in the game's Ringed City DLC. Now, something else this boss does that I can applaud the originality of is the fact that if you're playing in online mode, then instead of the regular old Half-Light showing up, a phantom of a real player will spawn in. And while it's a cool idea, online play in the Dark Souls games sucks major booty ass. Especially if your internet or their internet is slow, because then your weapon has the chance to go straight through them, or you take random damage out of nowhere. So it's optimal to play in offline mode for this guy. He's really underwhelming, especially since this is supposed to be the penultimate fight in the game, assuming you've played the main game and done all the optional bosses up to this point. Overall, just another bad NPC boss that could have just not been in the game and I'd be happy.
Dude, what the f***? Why are you f***ing here, man? You're so old. Where's your wife? Go home to your family, dude.
Kicking off the start of our D tier is the most missed potential out of any boss in the entire game. It's a huge dragon that just appears out of nowhere, like your dad coming back after 10 years with not 1, but 2 jugs of milk. This spot was honestly close to being above the next spot because of how they're both gimmick bosses, but I think this one can be much worse. You start by walking up and seeing this behemoth fly over the horizon at you, one of the biggest dragons you interact with in the Souls series. You find out that your damage is minuscule against this guy. However, if you wander around, you can see an opening in the wall. This is where the fight really falls off. You're supposed to run through this arena and run past a ton of these snake men enemies, which, in my humble opinion, suck major ass. I am the Snake Man's enemy number 1 because I swear these guys' attacks never end, on top of their damage being insane. While I understand that because it's a late game area, it doesn't excuse that they're the only enemy in Dragon Peak, or at least like 90% of them. After you run past all of these guys, or God forbid you fight them, you find a ladder and are able to jump off the ledge and plunge attack the top of the wyvern's head. Or at least try to, because if you miss, you have to go all the way back through this nightmare. Like, imagine struggling to get through this ophidiophobic ass area and jumping off the ledge just to completely whiff and fall to your death. Now, why is this freak above the other two? He's not an NPC.
Bacteria. We begin with only one bacteria. Two is what we then become bacteria. Each of us becomes two more.
Yeah, so the gimmick is the fact that most of the boss is just a common enemy type, with one main guy that's only found here, which is something else the ancient wyvern suffered from. The only real reasons the Deacons of the Deep are above the wyvern is because these guys don't piss me off. And also, I just think it's funny of the sheer volume of Deacons there are here. If you have larger weapons or AoE spells, it can make killing these guys really funny. However, you have to take down the glowing red guy, and whenever you do that, the red soul thing switches to a different Deacon. At around half health, the Archdeacon rises from the ground with 4 big blue-robed deacons. And unfortunately, this guy being blue, and having an awesome Pope hat on, is all that's really distinct about him. He's really just a regular deacon with another spell or two, but his low health pool, which is a minor problem with many bosses in the game, leads you to not really ever seeing him use these spells. However, that may be a good thing, as one of the spells can be an arena covering Curse Cloud, which can and will insta-kill you if you don't interrupt it. But if he happens to be surrounded and the other deacons don't let you near, the spell can be fully released and take you out. I actually genuinely don't hate this boss, nor do I groan when I prepare to fight him, especially since I quite like the Cathedral of the Deep. He's just mid. And on this playthrough I gave in and used the Sellsword Twin Blades, and sweeped up many of the bosses, defeating them on my first attempt. Mostly. Overall, he's whatever, it's really nothing special.
Shadow, it's me, the devil. I'm here to convince you to do sin.
The biggest crime the old Demon King does is not really being a fight. This guy is so slow. He thought snails were speeding. But seriously, I feel like I'm beating up a beanbag chair most of the fight. Especially when you get him down to his last tenth of his health or so, where he just sits around and tries to catch his breath like your mother getting out of bed. He only kind of suffers from no originality because you fight 2 other demons that look like him earlier in the game. Once with Sigurd in the Undead Settlement, and again like 5 minutes before you reach the old Demon King. Like, I'm not even joking, he's pretty much in the same area. Now, they are slightly different, with the old Demon King gaining a few other spell attacks and explosions with his staff, although honestly, the other 2 demons you can find are a little harder than this guy. Although lore-wise I understand it being that he's like the oldest living Dark Souls being in existence, or at least one of them, but I think they could have done away with making him a little faster with some more HP. Another downside is where he's located, pretty much the worst area in the game, locked behind cutting down a ladder and crossing the smoldering lake while a giant crossbow shoots at you and an electric sandworm blocks your path. You're supposed to let the mechanism destroy some loose rocks and go through a shit dungeon before you encounter the old Demon King, but real ones know to just squeeze past the sandworm and let the giant crossbow take it out. The old Demon King is kind of pathetic, and I roll my eyes when I make my way to him. However, his arena is undeniably sick, and I love how the demons look in this game. He isn't hard, and what moves he has are a little fun to learn, just very underwhelming in my humble and correct opinion.
Magic. Away.
Now I know what you all must be thinking. Canon, oh Canon sir, why haven't you listed that boss yet? Calm down, we're getting there. But first, the Crystal Sage kinda sucks. And this is the last boss I actually don't care for. Every boss after this is either good or great, which really shows the utter quality of the bosses in this game. Located right before the Cathedral of the Deep and after the Crucifixion Woods is a little ruined fort with a crystal sage at the end. Not difficult by any means, but his various spells can certainly catch you off guard if you don't spot him after he teleports away. Some spells are much easier to deal with than others, looking at you, floating spike ball loser. Halfway through the fight, he summons clones that can and will hurt you if you don't either deal with them or find and beat down the real one before he teleports away and does it again. Luckily, it's easy to tell which is which, since the fakes use blue magic and the real uses purple. However, you can only tell after they use a spell, so if you go up to the wrong one, the other clones can bombard you from the back and delete your health. Overall, the fight isn't too bad. Now, why is he all the way down here? Well, because of that fuck-ass in the Grand Archives. While this one isn't a boss, he's still a loser dweeb that makes this area absolutely insufferable, along with every other enemy type here, and it really sours the boss as a whole. The boss isn't bad, but I don't exactly look forward to fighting him.
I'm so hungry, I could eat a horse.
At the bottom of our C tier is the first of our mentioned Lord of Cinders. And you know, for a mandatory boss in the game, Aldrich kinda doesn't do as well as the other lords. Located in the worst version of Anor Londo, Aldrich is the most twinkified boss in the entire game. What makes this guy pale in comparison to the other lords is how the fight works. Largely, he'll be hurling spells at you to keep a distance between the two of you. Some of these are really nice to learn, like the purple stars, or even the part where he goes into the floor and teleports away. And while him teleporting through the arena can certainly be annoying, his health pool is actually quite low, so chasing him down isn't nearly that big of a deal. The real problem lies in one attack. Very rarely does a single attack tarnish the reputation of an entire boss, but it does happen, like Waterfowl Dance in Melania. While this move doesn't quite reach the absolute horror Waterfowl Dance does, his Rain of Arrows, specifically in Phase 2, is definitely something not to bat your eyes at. They come out so quick and track your movements the moment you make them, and they take forever to stop, so if you're unlucky, he can do it again or teleport away. Really, Aldrich just struggles with stalling way too much for his own good. That being said, he looks absolutely epic. That large butt sack looks like it could devour my god. I mean, anyways, he's not all bad. I just wished this version of Anor Londo had a bit more to it. I say that, and I've never even played the first Dark Souls game with the real Anor Londo, but that's besides the point.
Parker, our pronouns are they, them. Not because we are non-binary, but because we are literally two.
Out of the Soulsborne games I've played, Iudex Gundyr has to be my second least favorite first boss. Although the space between him and the Phalanx is huge, it should also be mentioned I've never beaten Demon's Souls or Sekiro, and never played Dark Souls 1 or 2. But if you subscribe, I might just stream it, who knows. Anyways, Iudex doesn't suck, but honestly, I feel nothing when I fight this version of him, as Champion Gundyr will certainly be placed higher. He's really just a plain old knight character with a halberd, until the Pus of Man explodes from his stomach and takes over. The Pus of Man is generally a rare enemy in the game, with less than 10 of them around, mostly in Lothar Castle, and the problem with this enemy is how sporadic their attacks are. Most of the time I don't even know the attack that's coming out. And again, with the enemy type being so rare, it's odd to me they'd slap it on the first boss, like it'd be something you'd have to look out for much more frequently than you actually do. First phase is insanely simple, but phase 2 is insanely hard to read. Iudex Gundyr is the most fight ever, with a better version of him that I will go much more into detail later.
Abby, look at this. Bon voyage.
Dude, that's so funny. I'm literally dead.
Now, if this guy isn't the definition of a simplistic Zumble boss, fucking whatever. Now, if this guy isn't the definition of a simplistic Zelda boss, I'm not sure what is. It's very obvious that you need to aim for Wolnir's glowing armbands, since the rest of his body doesn't take damage. Destroy all three and he goes down. While the Catacombs of Karthus is quite an underwhelming area, it is a relief to be granted with a boss that isn't overly tedious or annoying, and is instead somewhat of a mini-boss before you enter the beautiful kingdom of Irithyll, which is of course guarded by Wolnir. You first enter the fight by touching an ominous-looking skull cup that I would so buy if given the opportunity to. You're then dropped into this pitch-black arena with just a faint glow of an item in front of you. However, once you approach the item, the absolutely towering skeleton that is High Lord Wolnir, who puts even Yorm's size to shame, emerges in somewhat of a jump scare. The only two downsides of this fight would honestly be how frequently he can move his arms when you're trying to hit one of them. It doesn't always happen, but his right arm can certainly spam that sword attack over and over and over, and it can stall the fight forever. The other is the crawling forward attack that pretty much drains your health completely, and it can definitely catch you off guard if you're too close to his chest. But I never really have a problem with this attack patterns. The spectacle of entering the arena and seeing the sheer mass of this guy will forever stay in my mind. See all this glaze and we're still only at 17th place? I told you guys this game was goated.
Yep, guess I'm
Osiris is honestly just a funny guy. Like, this guy is supposed to be the ruler of Lothric Castle, and yet he's located in an optional area you might just miss, guarded by one cathedral knight. I love how throughout the fight he's trying to defend his baby Ocelot, a baby that is completely invisible but is still crying out throughout the first phase. Why only the first phase? Well, because Osiris fucking smashes it into a red paste on the ground, of course. And man, is that phase transition short but sick. He fully loses his mind and completely switches up his fighting style, from a generally calm and collected mage to the animal he already looks like. Also, side question, who exactly is the queen and why is she having sex with a dragon? I mean, all the other kids look human. Something to think about. Anyways, I absolutely love how his voice sounds. His actor definitely pulled it off. Where this boss can fall off is the arena. It looks nice, but with how erratically he can move, it's very easy to get cornered, especially when he uses that dash attack that comes out faster than you can react, and man can he use it a lot. His hitboxes are also quite small because he's quite the gangly little fellow, but if you manage to take this guy out, you're rewarded with the opportunities to receive the iconic Moonlight Greatsword. However, I think Ludwig did it better. This creature is pretty iconic for what he does, but I think he deserves a little better for literally being the king of Lothric Castle. Now I think it's time to move on to B tier. And before you guys go making angry comments, no, I didn't forget that one boss. You aren't going crazy, I just like him. But until then, Yorm the Giant is chill. The most chill dude in the game, probably. I will say that the fight itself is kind of a slog, but there's a lot around it that really boosts him up. Out of the two bosses that I've fought with the Storm Ruler gimmick, Rykard perfected it, because fighting Yorm is very slow. And if you don't know about the Storm Ruler in the back of the arena, it can definitely make new players confused by their low damage output. Like me, on my first time. I really don't like the fact that you pretty much need to look up how to beat this guy because it isn't nearly as clear as it should be. But aside from that, and how slow the Storm Ruler is to use, the fight is pretty cool. The arena is pretty, and his design as one of the Lords of Cinder is definitely sick. And if you've been following Sigurd's questline to a T up to this point, then he'll join you in the fight and help you take him out. If he survives, you can talk to him afterwards. If you were slow, like me unfortunately, then you'll get his armor immediately. Either way, it ends up in your hands where you don't get to have a chat with him afterwards. Back to Yorm himself. Because he's a giant, it means he's slow. So most of the time you'll have plenty of time to charge up the Storm Ruler and then find another time to let the charge loose. If you time it wrong though, his moves aren't hard to dodge. The best thing about this guy is honestly his spectacle. It definitely deserves his spot as a Lord of Cinder.
Make the dead! Release the river!
Yeah, I know, everyone hates him, but it's my list and I can do what I want. The curse-rotted Greatwood gets too much hate, and I genuinely don't know why. She rot on my Greatwood till I'm cursed. Like, sure, the little hollowed guys can be a little annoying, but they usually aren't close enough to mess with you. And the Greatwood can also kill them, and it's kind of funny when he does. As to be expected, this is a gimmick boss, and his gimmick is that he's made of wood, so your weapons won't be doing much damage, if any at all, to his wooden body. However, keen eyes can spot little flesh clumps on his arms, legs, and back. Attacking these will cause a massive chunk of health to diminish from curse-rotted Greatwood. I will admit, though, his attack where he shits all over the floor is really annoying, but it is really easy to avoid being hit by, and so are the rest of his attacks. Once he gets to half health, he slams the floor so hard it collapses and drops us into a lower arena, which absolutely scared the fuck out of me on my first playthrough. It is here where he sprouts a giant hand from his crotch, which isn't just a new fleshy area to deal damage to, but also a new way the Greatwood can attack you. And man, can this guy chunk your health if you're not careful in this phase. Once you deal with him though, you're granted with the Transposing Kiln, which lets you turn boss souls into weapons or spells associated with the boss. Now yeah, it can be annoying to have to kill an optional boss in order to do that, but it's better than the Hunter's Workshop being locked behind the Witches of Hemwick. The Curse-Rotted Greatwood also reminds me of a rotund tree ent from Lord of the Rings, and I think that's cool. Now yes, I will admit that mechanically this boss is just okay, but I'm tired of watching people dog on this guy for no reason. He does his best, and you spit on him. Shame on you!
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Okay guys, I'll be real. B tier was literally only 2 bosses. And now we're on to A tier. The bosses in this game are just that good. And who better to start A tier than Vort of the Boreal Valley, the first non-tutorial boss in the game, found at the end of the High Wall of Lothric. This guy is iconic, and not in the way that this boss fight is outstandingly unique, but his boss music, which has been pretty much a staple of the Dark Souls boss music for nearly 10 years, more specifically used in memes than anything else. Vort's legacy will always last as long as his music does. Now with his fight, it's one of the few in the game, and I think the only in the base game, not counting DLC, that uses frost damage, which isn't really found in most Soulsborne bosses in general. He also mainly stays on all fours like a dog, which lore-wise makes sense since he's kind of a dog to Pontiff Sullivan. But since he's on all fours, he'll be using more charge attacks and breath attacks specifically in Phase 2, along with some swipes with his weapon. As cool as he looks, and as cool as his music is, it is genuinely unfortunate that he is super cheesable if you just go behind him, where he can't really do much to hurt you. However, just pure iconicism carries this boss a ton, and I love when I get to encounter him.
Hello, Smelliot. I called him Smelliot.
And ranking 6 whole places above him is his updated version, Champion Gundyr. Not only is he located in the area where you can unlock the secret ending, being the Untended Graves, a hidden and abandoned version of the Firelink Shrine, but this boss is actually amazing. They took Iudex's speed, damage, health, and overall moveset and ramped things up to the max. If you thought Iudex was easy to dodge, you won't find safety in this guy's patterns, as his windows to attack have been severely cut in order to keep the pressure on you more often. And most importantly, Phase 2 doesn't just remove the Pus of Man phase, but they continue making his regular moveset more dangerous. I'm not usually a fan of FromSoft's tendencies to reuse bosses, especially not in the same game they were introduced with. I'm looking at you, Elden Ring. But instead of just copy and pasting the boss, they enhanced him. They didn't just remove a phase. They altered what it was, and didn't make the mistake they eventually would have with the 2 Mogs, or God forbid, Godefroy. God, what a freak.
Oh my god, bro.
And most of all, his title is massively deserved. He's a champion that you battle, and a worthy one at that, to be guarding the pathway to unlocking the secret ending. If I can think of only one bad thing, the arena is kinda dark. I mean, the whole area is, and I'm not quite sure why the place is so pitch black like it is, but it isn't dark enough to hinder the quality of Champion Gundyr.
I see a suit of armor around the world.
And just missing out of the top 10, and probably my second hot take of the video for not putting him higher, is the Dragon Slayer armor. Don't cry, y'all, he's still an A tier. What makes this fight so special is the fact that they just throw you straight in here after how oppressively pinned you are throughout Lothric Castle by each of the countless enemies. You see this massive pilgrim butterfly in the center of the bridge doing something to a set of armor kneeled down in front of us. Then suddenly he rises up and charges towards us. No cutscene or anything, just a raw fight. The Dragon Slayer armor doesn't hold back at all. He deals chunks of damage and can protect himself with his huge shield. So you'd think you'd be safe hiding behind him, right? Wrong! His cleaver has AoE lightning attacks that center on him, meaning if you just try to attack his backside, he'll simply whip one of those out and deny you that. This fight is explosive to say the least, and can easily one-shot even the most prepared people if he catches you off guard. Over the course of the fight, the railings of the bridge will break and you need to be careful you don't get cornered there, lest you panic roll to your demise. And he isn't the only rolling thing to keep an eye on, as the pilgrim butterflies will shoot you from the sky. And this is the thing about this fight I don't enjoy. You can't tell when they start shooting you, since there isn't a noise they make in preparation, or at least if there is, I certainly can't hear it. And if they do manage to hit you, without you being able to spot it beforehand, they can fucking slap you around and end the fight prematurely. Or if you're like me, kill the Dragon Slayer armor before they ever shoot, and catch a stray after he's dead for some reason, but whatever. I will say, it's cool you can find and kill the other one in the DLC, where you can get his armor.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them.
The first boss from the Ringed City DLC, and the first DLC boss since 24th place, is the Demon Prince, otherwise known as the Demon in Pain and the Demon from Below. These guys are what the Valiant Gargoyles should have been more like. A duo boss fight that feels comfortable to fight. One of the demons will rush you down while the other gathers its bearings in the back, either shooting projectiles at you or lurking until it's ready to switch in with its counterpart. Whichever one is ready to fight you one-on-one will be illuminated by the fire on his body, and when they need to retreat, their flame dies out. Once you defeat one of them though, the other's fire remains until you defeat him. These two are super fun to fight with attacks that, while can be a little hard to see due to their size, specifically some of the melee moves, are an overall fun fight to learn. Oh shit, one of them is getting back up. Yeah, the second one you beat will get back up and turn into the much harder Demon Prince. And the gimmick here actually lies on which one you kill first. If the Demon from Below is killed first, then the Demon in Pain will rise into the Demon Prince with his main attack being a giant laser. If the Demon from Below is killed second, the new attack will be these giant fireball attacks. Now unfortunately, the laser one is insanely easier than the fireball one. I don't know if it's because of the Placidusax conditioning we've all had, but if you want a smoother ride with these two, defeat the Demon from Below first. But aside from that, the rest of the Demon Prince phase is amazing. He grows these sick wings and is able to lift himself off the ground temporarily, and all of his attacks become stronger, faster, and more violent, along with looking sick as hell, and is definitely one of the coolest bosses in the game. Also, did you guys notice that all the DLC bosses that weren't NPCs are in the top 10?
Creature has been watching.
Trust me guys, I want to rank them higher too, but I just can't help but feel like the Abyss Watcher's health pool is simply way too low. Like, I feel like these guys can catch the common cold and blow up because of it. But aside from that, everything else about these guys is amazing. They're the first Lord of Cinder you're going to encounter after the titular poison swamp that I hate. In Phase 1, you'll be pinned up against one of the Abyss Watchers, surrounded by the corpses of the others. During this, another one will get up and rush you down as well. Only he has a chance to draw aggro from the first one, and they can duke it out. If they don't, however, it turns into an oppressive 1v2. until of which the third shows up and exclusively attacks the other two, making it quite the hectic fight that you can just kind of stand around and watch from the distance, till all but the main one go down. Once he goes down, however, the second phase will start and he will draw in the blood of all the fallen Abyss Watchers and become a much stronger version of himself, absolutely drawing inspiration from a previous Soulsborne boss, Lady Maria, as his attacks will be infused with stronger flame trails with a slight delay to the regular sword swings, not to mention the absolutely amazing OST playing throughout the battle. And at the end of this stellar fight, you finally put the ever-rising Abyss Watchers down for the final time, and are able to purchase their armor set in the shop and look sick as hell doing so. Again, I wish their health was a bit higher. I mean, hell, the Crystal Sage has more health, but since they're technically an early game boss, you can't complain too much. At least this fight saves the ending of Farron Keep from being 100% bad and not giving us a shitty boss. If only all humanoid bosses could be like these guys.
This is no thunderstorm. It's a thunder battle.
Ah. The man who invented the blueprints to Elden Ring bosses and their mostly insufferable delayed attacks. Trust me guys, I actually really like Elden Ring, don't take my hate too seriously. It is of course the Nameless King. King of delayed attacks more like. Elden Ring may have perfected them, quote unquote, but this guy invented them. His attacks completely throw off the balance and rhythm of every other boss in the game, designed to make you reconsider how you approach him, since panic rolling and spamming your attacks won't be nearly enough to beat this guy properly. His arena is intense, his design is sick, and his attacks are beautiful, along with beautifully choreographed and a perfect boss to master. He mainly utilizes lightning attacks and explosive lance strikes that, if you fail to dodge properly, will likely lead to a fatal outcome of the fight. He's arguably the hardest boss in the base game, located at the end of the secret area Archdragon Peak, an area I really don't like, albeit, but a rewarding boss to this area nonetheless. Now I know what you all are thinking. Canon, oh Canon, if this boss is so awesome and perfect and cool, why on earth is he placed as low as he is? Simple. The first phase blows dookie butthole. I'm sorry. The King of the Storm, which is phase 1, features the Nameless King atop his wyvern, which he flies down into the arena with. There are two massive problems with this phase that genuinely makes it insufferable whenever I die and have to redo the fight. The first is the camera. FromSoft is known for making big bosses, specifically dragon bosses, have horrible camera problems, between randomly locking off of the boss and not being able to lock back on, and getting stuck in places that make it impossible to see what attack the boss is trying to throw out. This makes it 10 times worse here because of the sheer damage the Nameless King can dish out to you. The second problem is the wyvern's hitboxes. Like most dragon fights, you want to hit the head as the rest of their body takes less damage and they're likely to reposition themselves if you aren't up front. There are dozens of times in this fight where you are up in this guy's ass and your weapon will seemingly still whiff completely when you absolutely should have hit it. At the very least, this phase's attacks do look cool, and this phase also has low health, so if you manage to battle the camera along with the boss, then your problems shouldn't be too problematic. Aside from that though, an epic fight I love to overcome.
Use your head.
But I don't want to use my head!
Being the only optional boss in the Ringed City DLC, I don't think there would be any other deserving spot for the secret boss than Dark Eater Midir. I've said it once before earlier, but I've only played the 2 DLCs twice, this run being the second. And in my first DLC playthrough, I never beat Midir. I thought he was too hard. I thought his damage was too high, and my damage was too low. But this time, I bit the bullet, and I wouldn't stop until I beat him. No matter how many countless times I died, I stayed strong and I beat him in like 4 attempts.
Whoa!
Man, the Sellsword Twin Blades really are broken, aren't they? Regardless, this ranking is about the boss itself and what a boss he is. You first encounter this guy a mile above his arena, on a land bridge in the Dreg Heap. You need to defeat him here so he falls below into the arena that inspired the Putrescent Knights arena in Elden Ring. Once that is done, find his arena behind a few hidden walls and a hole in the ground that drops you into the boss fight. Midir is tough and relentlessly bombards you with claws, jaws, and flaming purple maws. Like most dragons, his head is the weak point, and this is mainly where you'd want to deal the most damage. Many of his attacks will actually leave him wide open for you to dish out some damage on a silver platter if you remain patient enough. Which I admit, I did tend to wail on his legs for some additional damage because I'm impatient. But this is one of the coolest looking dragons and definitely one of the coolest to fight. Now being right behind Baal for me now that I've beaten him. His staple moves revolve around his darkness fire that he shoots in a laser beam from his mouth. The beam itself can of course hurt you, but it isn't all that it can do, as it leaves smaller explosions on the ground that can wipe you out if you don't know about them. The moveset here is so unbelievably satisfying to learn and absolutely goes down in history as the best optional boss in Dark Souls 3.
Thank you, and remember, doof you, doof me, doof us. I'm Heinz Doofenshmirtz, and I approve this evil message.
And just missing out of our top 5 and S tier is probably the most evil, lore-wise character in Dark Souls 3. Between turning loyal knights into monstrous dogs to fight his enemies, and forcing Aldrich to devour Gwendolyn, we have the predecessor to R'hllana herself, Pontiff Sulyvahn. This boss was my biggest roadblock in difficulty the first time I played this game. No other boss gave me nearly as much trouble as he did, aside from the Nameless King. Between his flaming and magic swords and his versatility to avoiding your attacks, this guy is one of the most formidable opponents located at the end of the stunning Irithyll Kingdom. His attack combos are quick and calculated, designed to make you feel cornered in an open space. Even though his first phase is dangerous enough, once his health is brought to half, he summons a clone and grows wings to further complicate things. The transparent purple clone will throw out much weaker attacks compared to Sulyvahn, but each attack the clone does, Sulyvahn will do immediately afterwards. So while his clone's damage is minuscule, it can combo into even more if you don't take action after the first hit. The clone can be killed, as its health isn't nearly as much as Sulyvahn's, but it's wiser to just focus on the main Pontiff Sulyvahn, because even if you do get hit by the clone, keeping pressure on the main guy can end the fight quicker and help you stay on your toes against the main damage dealer here. Honestly, given his significance to the lore, I wish this guy had at least one cutscene, but he doesn't. You just walk on in there and start swinging. If he did though, he certainly would be up at least another spot or two. Nevertheless, a near-perfect boss I wouldn't change anything about.
Goes up in smoke, and you are wearing his merchandise!
Entering our top 5, we move into our S tier. And as for the first of our 3 final bosses in the game, including the final boss of each DLC, we have the Soul of Cinder. Arguably the boss with the second most iconic theme in Dark Souls history, given that it not only embodies the strength, intensity, and aura of Dark Souls bosses, but also featuring some more Dark Souls 1 glaze with its second phase. But let's start with the first. Once all of the Lords of Cinders are defeated, and you're sent to the Kiln of the First Flame, scale the ashen stairs and enter the arena. The Soul of Cinder rises up and the two of you are thrown into battle. The first phase can be a little tricky as every so often he switches up his moveset. The idea here is that he is the embodiment of every other person who linked the First Flame, and thus has all of their movesets. He has his regular sword build, a curved sword dex build, a magic int build, and a spear build. The curved sword is arguably the most dangerous one, but at the end of the day, everyone has different strengths to fighting different builds, and his form changes are random, so pray for good luck. Once you bring his health all the way down, he kneels to the ground and gathers his bearings before exploding into his second phase. And yes, here's where Here, he embodies Gwyn from Dark Souls 1, the final boss, taking not just the boss theme, but his lightning-style attacks as well. The way they implement it all here is so wonderfully done. I know people roll their eyes at all the Dark Souls 1 references, but I've never played Dark Souls 1, so I have nothing to complain about. His music is a masterpiece. The arena is gorgeous, especially with the eclipse hanging in the background. His armor set is badass. The fight is super fun to learn, and super intense as well. and he is a perfect final boss for the main game of Dark Souls 3.
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
But there are still 2 more final bosses here, and first is found at the end of the Ashes of Ariandel DLC, and the only mandatory boss here as well, Sister Frida. Sister Frida is a special boss. She has gone down in history as one of the most difficult bosses in Soulsborne, harder than Orphan of Cause, who came before her, and slightly easier than Melania and Promised Consort Radahn, who came way later. Much like Orphan of Cause, however, I actually beat her on my first ever try. No, I never recorded it. Yes, I expect you to plainly believe me. If it's any consolation, I have the footage of me beating her in like 4 tries here, so do with that information what you will. Anyways, she holds a similar aura to her as Lady Maria, and Melania being the swift and fast-paced girl boss. Yeah. The first phase isn't anything too special. She opens with her scythe, which can cause some frost damage either on hit or the bit that lingers on the floor. She can also go invisible, which can be a problem if you're deaf or if your sound is off, as she has a sound cue whenever she reappears to strike you down. If you kill her before she kills you, then we get an amazing cutscene featuring her blood drifting towards Father Ariandel, and upon witnessing her lifeless corpse, he unleashes the rawest and most iconic scream in gaming history. He then revives Frida and sets the church aflame as you were pinned against a 1v2. Thankfully, they have a shared health pool here. Frida can still go invisible to catch you off guard, and Father Ariandel can cover the floor with flames and explosive strikes with his large crucible. Ariandel is the easier target to take down, and if you're successful, then you can finally breathe as the fight rewards you with a Titanite slab. Oh no, she's getting back up. Yep. Up until now, there have been no bosses in Soulsborne history with 3 health bars. And until that stupid sunflower in Elden Ring, she was the only one. At least her 3 phases are unique, but I digress. This phase is the biggest challenge in Dark Souls 3, as her ice has now been upgraded to Black Flame, and it hurts. She is twice as fast and twice as dangerous. I'll be honest, I do not know how I beat her my first ever try, but all I can say is that this is how a difficult fight can feel insanely hard and still be fun. Keeping the pressure but not being oppressive. Looking at you, Waterfowl Dance. Sister Frida is spectacular and easily deserves a spot in the top 5. Would have been top 3 if not for the other final boss.
You're fighting so you can watch everyone around you die. Think, Mark.
Yeah, let's get real. The final boss of all of Dark Souls, Slave Knight Gale, is the definition of peak, located literally 60 seconds after killing Half-Light, and an endless ashen blanket spread out as far as you can see. Slave Knight Gale is cursed to search for the blood of the Dark Soul for his lady. Once he spots you, he's ready to fight with everything he has, as he has nothing else left. He fights for nothing, fights over nothing, and would gain nothing from killing you, nor you him. But hey, what else is there to do? There's no bowling alley around here. This guy functions in the complete opposite to Osiris. He starts off fighting like a mindless beast, wildly throwing himself at you with his rusted and broken greatsword in hopes to take you out quickly. It's really sad seeing such a lowly portrayed individual try desperately to take you out while he's blinded by rage, and without any form of coherent thoughts, but let's be honest, we're all here for Phase 2. Between his fast-paced attack combos with his sword, his leaps and bounds with his cape spewing out red projectiles, his crossbow shooting out 1,000 arrows, and has absolute stellar lightning attacks that strike down alongside his own weapon. Gale succeeds in popularity the most in Phase 2, and wouldn't be the same boss without this phase. His voice actor is doing an amazing job here, his character design looks so slick, and his desolate arena is a perfect spot to finish this trilogy story, and a perfect place to fight what many consider to be the best boss in Soulsborne history. So why did he get bronze, you may ask? Well, this may be a hot take to many of you to place her this high, but I really like the Dancer of the Boreal Valley. Unlike many required bosses in Soulsborne, there are multiple times you can encounter this boss whenever you feel. The normal way would be after you defeat the third Lord of Cinder, either Yorm or Aldrich, after which you'd be transported all the way back to the High Wall of Lothric in front of High Priestess Emma. Once she dies, then the Dancer will descend from the ceiling. However, you are fully capable of challenging her potentially as your first boss in the game after you leave Firelink Shrine. Since you need to talk to Emma for the banner to get to the Undead Settlement, if you kill her here at the start of the game, the Dancer will come down as an early challenge that, at least half the time, I actually try to take on. And the early game challenge can definitely be super fun, especially since it opens up Lothric Castle early too. For the fight itself though, stunning. There aren't very many Soulsborne bosses that move quite like she does. The only one that comes close is Midra from Elden Ring, a boss who moves like water and walks similarly to a stalking cat. She wields a pair of twin blades, one with fire and the other with magic. Her moveset is choreographed perfectly, and there's no unfair attack or move that outright pisses me off. She can easily keep the pressure with that spinning attack that chases you down throughout the cathedral, which gets slowly more and more broken over time as the fight progresses. I, of course, think her fit is fire, and I always look forward to encountering her in combat. I genuinely think there is nothing wrong with this fight, and is a personal favorite of mine. But not my number one. When the game Dark Souls 3 comes up in conversation, what's the one boss that comes up into your mind first? For most people, it's probably Soul of Cinder, or Slave Knight Gale, maybe even Abyss Watchers. For me though, no doubt in my mind, the twin princes, Lothric and Lorien, found at the very top of Lothric Castle. In seemingly their bedroom or throne room, you can find the twins. Upon entering, Lothric is atop his throne, talking down to us as his brother, Lorien, crawls out from the darkness, then is promptly teleported down to the arena with you. He fights just like a knight would, but with the exception that his legs are almost completely unused as he remains on his knees the whole fight. His brother helps him traverse from above by teleporting him. He can either appear above you with a slam attack, or at a distance where he'll unleash a light attack from his sword that can tank your health. Lorien by himself is very dangerous, but once the first phase is over and you kill him, Lothric comes down, revives him, and they combine into what Promised Consort Radahn wishes he could be. Not only is the teleporting more prominent in this phase, but Lothric's magic is in full effect. When they teleport away, Lothric will begin casting smaller projectiles that will lock onto you, or unleash a massive magic burst that hits like a truck, especially if you're unfortunate enough to be slapped by Lorien's sword right after. The fight between you and the twins is by far my favorite fight in this game, and easily in my top 5 boss fights of all time, because of the amazing build-up and lore being that these two are pretty much the biggest bad guys in Dark Souls 3. I love these guys. If I had a son, his name would be these guys. Well, that's the list. What are you guys still doing here? Right. Subscribe, like now, like right now. That's it. That's all I have to say. Oh, and I'm trying to find time to start streaming my Silksong Steel Soul runs, but my throat right now is kind of sore, and I'm not feeling all too well. But I will say that I like just yesterday, the trailer for the DLC was teased, and it looks really cool. Huzzah! Also, I may or may not have a certain game of the year in my Steam library that I may or may not also stream for you guys, as long as you promise not to spoil anything. Anyways, that's all. Please be nice and watch some of my other videos. They're funny.